in this episode.
And I know this is more of like it's a sports and winning podcast, but like I just go back to the sports side because that's where most of our listeners are. That I don't have many regrets for my career, but that is one for sure that I do regret, is just not having the mental fortitude or the maturity level at the moment to literally like, dude, when I had like year-long slumps where I was just taken from the starting rotation into the relief role, sucked there, felt sorry for myself, didn't change anything. I was just blaming everybody else, hoping that the next situation would magically get better. And that the next time a coach would call my name and give me the ball, that all of a sudden I'd just have success. That's all I was hoping for. And that so many players fall into that trap. And it's almost like when
hope is a crazy thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
And when I'm teaching them now and I start to hear that, like, I instantaneously stop that. I cut the head off that animal real quick. I am just like, no, we're not going to talk about the umpire. I don't care. I don't care. I don't mean to say I don't care about you. I don't care. It's not going to, what are we going to do? Magically change him next time? No. Okay. Well, I was pitching and it was 40 degrees and it was raining and that's what, no.
Here's a prime example.
I don't care.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. Last episode, we talked a little bit about recruiting. So if you are a high school athlete or a middle school athlete that really wants to get to the next level, college baseball, or if you don't play baseball, but softball or any other sport, go back, listen to that episode. I feel like it is extremely valuable. We've talked about recruiting from a tactical guide perspective. I think that was probably our 4th episode on it. But really actionable advice, practical advice that we see on an everyday basis and that we live and breathe it. Like, it's always turning, always changing. And so being able to do those types of episodes really helps us concisely give a message out and hopefully help you in pursuing your goal. So anyways, the episode for today is we're going to be going more towards, I want to talk about slumping. I want to talk about complaining.
Okay.
And again, we've all been there. I've had my fair share of slumps. Especially on the diamond, but in life as well, and feeling like nothing's going your way. And it's very easy to get into the black spiral of death, and you can't get yourself out of it. You're the only person that can get yourself out of it. One example of a slump spiral that I was listening to an audiobook from Ryan Holiday. As everyone knows, I'm on that kick right now. And it was about Sean Green. Do you remember that baseball player for the LA Dodgers?
Oh, yeah. Left-handed hitter.
Left-handed hitter. Played for the Blue Jays.
Yeah. Lanky dude, tall dude. Yeah, I remember.
And he signed a big contract with LA.
Yeah.
And I actually remember it, watching it on SportsCenter and everything. Like, he was just slumping. He was batting like 1-something. It was like the Cody Bellinger type of situation where he couldn't get out of a slump. He was trying to figure it out. Like, he's such a talented guy. And he couldn't figure out how to actually hit a baseball. It was like your analysis by paralysis. Like, you're just so caught up. Like, can I even do this anymore?
Right.
And you really question yourself. Like, I'm being paid like $15 million to hit a baseball, and I can't hit a baseball. Like, how do I get myself out of it? And he ended up getting himself out of it on a road series in Milwaukee. And it was the rubber match of the series. Ended up going 7 for 7 and had 4 jacks in that game. It was just like an explosive. It was a historical day for an MLB player. And so I think he had like he had 10 or 12 RBIs, like something stupid. And it got me thinking about feeling like you're getting, like, the deck is stacked against you. And another example, have you ever watched the Denzel Washington movie on the boxer, his name is the Hurricane, Reuben Carter? Well, Reuben Carter was a middleweight boxer I think he was in the East Coast, but he was potentially contending for a championship, the belt. and he ended up getting wrongfully accused of murder.
Ooh.
And went to prison. I think he went for 20 years. It was 20 years, but murder of 3 people. And he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they ended up pinning it against him. And he ended up writing a book on his story. And he spent his time in prison trying to exonerate himself. And so, talk about a stacked deck against you. Like you end up going to prison, and you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
And you find a way to get yourself out of it. And going back, I think there's a couple of recollections of it in the movie, but he never really complained. He was just went to work trying to figure out how to get himself out. Another story is Malcolm X. He ended up going to prison, and he was wrong. He was accused, and he was guilty of it. But he spent his time learning and trying to read as many books as he possibly could during his time in prison. Now, those are extreme examples, but a lot of people, when you think about those extreme examples, they're the outliers. What mostly happens? They're there for life. They're there for a good amount of time. They don't get themselves out. They don't make themselves productive. Now, in those extreme examples, let's go back to Sean Green, which is not as extreme. He's a MLB star making $15 million a year, and he gets himself out of a slump, which he could have been sent down to the minors. He could have been released. He could have been traded. His career could have been over with. And so his livelihood of making money could have been out the window, and he'd have to figure out how to provide for his family, even though $15 million is a nice big check. $15 million can be spent pretty fast if you're living a pretty luxury lifestyle. So on the stack deck, and what I want to talk about is how do you get yourself out of it? How do you move yourself in the right direction? And I think it has to deal with perception. Being able to perceive what actually happened in a different way than what you normally perceive it, because complaining is self-soothing. It's self-indulgent. It's not being able to get ideas and get thoughts. You're basically using it as a soundboard, and you're trying to make yourself feel more comfortable. But at the end of that road, and trust me, I've complained a lot in my life. At the end of that road, it always feels empty, doesn't it?
There is no answer. There's no answer to it.
Yeah, it's just like it's a loop. You just keep looping, loop and loop and loop, and you end up going down in this death spiral funnel, and you can't get yourself out, and you're at the very bottom, and you're trying to figure out how to get out of it.
Like, you ever been in one of those conversations with like 3 or 4 people where one person starts complaining about something else, and then it just keeps going in a circle? Well, I'll top your story. I got something worse. And you start complaining, and then boom, boom, boom. And the only answer to the next thing is to complain more. That's the only thing. But I think if you walk away from that 30, 40 hour minute conversation, you've got nothing for it. You've got absolutely nothing to come home about. It's obviously it's not the thing that's going to push you forward in life, if that makes sense.
It kind of going more history here. It's kind of like the German Blitzkrieg, that offensive.
Ooh, right turn there.
I know, a huge right turn. Or a left turn, however you want to think about it. So, like, what Germany would do is, and it's a very interesting tactic in war, where they would just go in and bomb the hell out of a city. And basically the city would fall to its knees, and they wouldn't know what to do. So basically you catch them off guard, you go in with guns a-blazing, blow up everything, and then you come back through, and then you finish up, and then you control the city. Mm-hmm. Well, when you go extremely offensive right off the gate, it leaves your flanks exposed. But when you are in that blitzkrieg, you can't see those flanks, because you're just you're like, holy cow, we are getting bombed in every which way. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? It seems like just heaven is falling down on top of us, right? Heaven and hell. And so what the U.S. realized, what Eisenhower realized, he took a step back and took a different perspective of what was happening, and really analyzed when Germany went into the different cities and how to attack them and how to end up penetrating that blitzkrieg. So when you think about a situation and you feel like the deck is stacked against you, being able to take a step back, reassess the situation. So like if you're in a hitting slump and you're like 0 for 15, and I've been there, 0 for 15 is miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to take that step back and thinking, okay, what is something that I'm not seeing here? What is something that is being, can expose itself? Because there's a weakness in there that I can take advantage of that I'm not seeing. And what weakness is my enemy taking advantage of that I'm not seeing as well? So changing that perspective is massively important when you're trying to get out of a blitzkrieg type of moment.
It goes back to something that I've kind of talked about quite often on this podcast, and I've talked quite often with our players and parents about it, is that when something doesn't go your way, or adversity faces you, you have one of two options. You can complain about it, or you can try to find a solution to it. There's really only two options. And we've all been in a dugout at one point or another, or seen a team that collectively has chosen to complain about the issues, have the woe is me attitude, that everybody's out to get them, that the umpires were to blame, that the field conditions that day were the reason we lost, that if we had this one player who wasn't injured, we'd be a different team. That they're just searching for all of these things that are not going their way, and that's the reason that they're failing at whatever they're trying to do. And that's a constant type of failure type thing. That's a revolving door. That never will ever change for you as long as you keep that same approach going. And the difference between a person or a player that consistently wins and doesn't go into long slumps is the fact that when that thing happens, it doesn't go their way, they don't blame anyone else other than themselves. And they say, I have to go find a solution to it. It's almost like, and you start doing it and you almost become like, not immune, but like when you start to feel that complaint bug come around, you just put that thing away. You just say, nope, we're not doing it. And as a person, like, there's no one in the world who says that they don't complain. Of course, it happens, right?
You have to expect that's going to happen.
It's going to happen, and I can feel it in myself. Whenever a situation doesn't go the way I want it to, and it, because that happens like every day, 100 times, right? And I want to just scream from the rooftops, "This is BS. This reason, whatnot."
Your inner child comes out.
Oh my God, I can feel them, dude. I can literally feel it coming, and I'm like, I kind of like put a stop to it and be like, nope. And I know this is more of like, it's a sports and winning podcast, but like, I just go back to the sports side because that's where most of our listeners are. That I don't have many regrets for my career, but that is one for sure that I do regret, is just not having the mental fortitude or the maturity level at the moment to literally like, dude, when I had like year-long slumps where I was just taken from the starting rotation into the relief role, sucked there, felt sorry for myself, didn't change anything. I was just blaming everybody else, hoping that the next situation would magically get better, and that the next time a coach would call my name and give me the ball, that all of a sudden I'd just have success. That's all I was hoping for, and that so many players fall into that trap. And it's almost like when
Hope is a crazy thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
And when I'm teaching them now, and I start to hear that, like, I instantaneously stop that. I cut the head off that animal real quick. I am just like, no, we're not going to talk about the umpire. I don't care. I don't care. I don't mean to say I don't care about you. I don't care. It's not going to. What are we going to do? Magically change him next time? No. Okay. Well, I was pitching and it was 40 degrees and it was raining, and that's what. No.
Here's a prime example.
I don't care.
At Lake Point, when we had that call down the first baseline, and he said that what was the call?
Well, it was the most like outrageously wrong call ever in human history of umpiring, like saying that someone doesn't have to touch first base, that all they have to do is get past it because the first baseman got in his way. And you're like, it's not a finish line, and whatever. And he just argued with me, and there's no sense to be made of it. And
but you didn't make a fool out of yourself. That was the thing. You didn't get to a point where you
what would it have
escalated
done?
it, which then the players would escalate on top of that, and like they'll feed into that.
And then that could have set the tone for the whole. That was the first game of the deal. That would have set the tone for the whole weekend. That, man, we were screwed from day one when that stupid umpire was awful and just he crushed that game. If you go back to that exact moment in that game, that's why we lost that game. No, there's hundreds of things in that game that could have been done different. And that's why you tied or lost that game, whatever we did. I think we tied. But I like, listen, that stuff's going to happen to you all the time. Like, you just have to be aware that that's coming. And I think that it's inevitable for young people to complain.
Do you think, I agree with you on that one, but I want to pose this question. Do you think that when I say us, I think like adults in general, I don't know the answer to this, but adults in general, we don't speak about values and virtues enough to where we can arm our players or our students with the ability to attack bad days.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that in generalities, we're not doing a great job of preparing them for that type of stuff. You know, there's too much of the you had a rough day, it's not your fault, you'll get it next time. Or, you know, you fail a test because you didn't prepare. Well, the teacher made the test too hard. Or it's from a coaching perspective, it's, you're trying to protect them in a way. Right. And that's a noble value. Like, that's a noble thing to do. I get it. But like, kid has a really bad weekend, and you as a coach or a teacher in my role, or parents, or even teammates to that extent, by feeding into the negativity, by feeding into the complaining mindset, by agreeing with them that it wasn't there. And it listen, I'm going to put it this way. What if that umpire was horrendous? What if, like, legitimately you threw 90% strikes and he gave you 10% of them? And he is legitimately the reason you lost. Legitimate. What good is it still to say that it's the umpire's fault?
I know.
What does that do other than soothe you in the moment?
It's just it's perception, right?
Because it's all you are doing is you're setting them up. You're making them feel better in the short term to set them up for more failure in the long term.
Because the best part about that is that the other team had to deal with that, and other teams in that tournament had to deal with that.
Absolutely, regardless, I don't care, and that's my stance is. I would be setting you up for long-term failure because the very next time you don't get a call, you will think of that last umpire and associate him with this guy, and you didn't win because of him last time, so you're not going to win now with this guy. You're going to set your future before it ever happens. It's how you think. And so now you see patterns, and I'd rather you see the pattern of, whatever, that guy could be as bad as he wants. Fine. I don't even want the ball to hit the catcher's glove. I'm going to find a way to get the ball off the bat in the bad way and get outs that way. Cool. Great. Awesome. And that's where I'm going to choose to set my focus rather than that guy behind the plate who's awful. I don't care. He can be as awful as he wants. It's not going to change my outcome. I'm going to go figure out, okay, I'll throw a slow pitch softball out there and get outs. I don't care. It's choosing to find a different route rather than placing the blame there, because that's a slippery slope. Because if you allow yourself to go down that path one time, you're going to allow yourself to go down that path 10 times. And if you get into a path 10 times, then it's going to become a constant. It's going to become a habit. And then you're constantly blaming others for when it really is probably you. That's the only way I can put it.
It always comes back to you.
because you can change something. Again, I just go to the most extreme examples. Like, what if it is hailing outside and you're at the bat and you can't see the ball as it's coming in, and clearly the game should be called at that moment and you shouldn't be on the field? Well, you are. Like, you are. It doesn't change the fact in the moment that you are. So what can you do in that moment to try to succeed? That's the only choice you have.
That's part of the terrain, though. That's part of the game. We play outside for a reason. That's just if you think about it that way, like, you can't rely on. But I'm
just pointing out.
But what I'm saying is you can't. That's what I'm saying. It goes to that point, is that you can't rely on an external thing to bail you out. That's what's happening in that situation. You're looking for a bailout. You're looking for something to basically say, you know what, you're good. So we're gonna make sure that you're taken care of. Here's a really quick story. So this plays in my head constantly, and I don't know why. I think I do, but I'm gonna say the story. So it was my senior year of college. I wasn't playing anymore. It was my last semester, and I had to finish up my degree. And I was living with one of my friends who was working for the AA Cardinals. And he was getting paid decent money, not great. And he came home one day, and it was it was raining, and he was like, "You can't believe this shit. I had to go out and pull the tarp and put the tarp on so that we were able to play the game tomorrow." Like, I just graduated with a college degree. I shouldn't have to do that. Like, why am I doing that? The players should do that. That perception was totally wrong in all cases. The players in that situation are the product. They're the ones that are driving the fans. They're the ones that are producing the cash flow. You are just the support role. It doesn't matter if you have a college degree. Doesn't matter if you have a doctorate degree. Every single person I know in my family that has that, they're very humble. They're very like, how can I help you? Grayling Tobias, someone who's in our organization, he is one of the most accomplished people that I know, and he has every degree under the sun, has helped a school out, controlled a school, and he's the most humble person in the world. But then you have someone else that I can think of, not in our organization, but that has none of those things and acts like they should have everything.
Let me just, with your example right there of your buddy who worked for the AA Cardinals, who was probably in an entry-level role, okay, if I had to guess, right? Let me just break down that situation real fast. Again, there's always two options. He was asked to do a service that was outside of his normal job responsibilities, if I had to guess. He's probably in ticket sales, or he's probably doing something in an office job, and all of a sudden they needed all hands on deck to go down and get that tarp on the field so that the team could play tomorrow and that it wouldn't be a washout and that they didn't have to reschedule the game going forward. And that's how the operations kind of look at it, right? Because they can't lose dates, because then they lose money. It's just how the business works. So they probably asked some staff members who are not used to being on field, getting dirty. It was probably raining out. He was probably had to interrupt his day, probably had to go do something from what he was already doing to do another task, which he at the moment deemed menial. He deemed that was below his pay grade, in my opinion, right? So he chose to look at that as, that's BS. I shouldn't have to do that. Can you believe this? I'm dirty now, dude. I was wearing khakis. I had my polo on. They asked me to come down there and do that. That's an hourly job. That's something that other people should be doing, not me. Not me. And he chose to complain about it. Take that route. Rather than, what if you look at the route like this? You want to be valuable to the organization. You have to know everything that goes into the day-to-day of everybody's job in the organization. If you want to move up, if you want to get that next level job, if you want to be GM, if you want to work into something else, you have to absolutely know what it's like to be a day in the life of that person who's on the grounds crew. You have to know that. So now you just got the opportunity to go down there, help your fellow workmates, help your people out in a situation where they needed assistance. Now that makes you look more valuable because let's absolutely do that. So now the higher ups are like, that dude, John, he's willing to do anything for this organization. So next time the situation comes around for a promotion, I know I can count on John. John's probably going to get that job because he was willing to do that with a smile on his face to learn a new task, to learn what it's like to be in that person's shoes, because that's what you have to be when you're managing everyone. You have to know how to talk to everyone. There's two different routes. If you have a solution mindset, when a problem comes up, you just figure out a way to look at it from a different perspective.
It's like the intern culture where a college graduate who just graduated with a master's degree is not willing to take an internship because it's beneath them. It's not beneath you. It's the ability to open up new doors, to find opportunity, and being able to do menial tasks for someone that's higher up clears the path for that person to do their job. Mm-hmm. Here's a prime example. Drew, who was our intern, and we ended up starting to pay him. His whole mindset was, it literally came in. He's like, Spike, I want to clear the path for you. I want to be able to free up some time so that you're able to be more creative. He literally said that verbatim.
Sure.
Said that. He knew that if I can do that and I can be a connector, something along the line, I'll be able to know where my next opportunity is. I don't know if he could consciously say that, but when he said those words, that's literally what's popping into my head. This guy gets it. This guy knows what needs to happen. That's what me and you did when we were first starting out. Clear the path so that Jaws was able to do things that he needed to do. He didn't need to mop the floors. He didn't need to tie up the nets. He didn't need to get into the cage and start teaching. He would if he needed to, but we were here to help prevent that because he was able to build on top of the business. He was able to provide more opportunity for the customers to be able to learn more, to be able to find value more. Instead of, if he was in a cage, he could be the best teacher in the world. He could be the absolute best teacher in the world. But there are also some other really good teachers out there. So if he's in a cage, he can't go out and get more teachers to bring into his community so that the customers can be able to access those teachers, which right now we are absolutely 100% exploding when it comes to instructors. Sure. We have a really, really strong staff. Sure. This is not a marketing message. This is just facts. We have a person came up to me the other day, one of my old clients, and they said, Spike, I can't get on your schedule. Are you teaching? I'm like, I wish I could, but my time is, I have to spend it over here. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not the best teacher here. Mm-hmm. I'm just not. I can already think of 3 guys ahead of me that are better than me. Mm-hmm. Like, do I think I'm good? Yeah, my ego, I want to say that I'm a good teacher. Sure. I think I could take you from point A to point B and you'll find success. I mean, that was one of the things with a couple of my players. Like when I got them, I was like, the first thought in my head is like, I'm going to make sure that you go to college. That was my first thought. They're like 12, 13 years old, and you could see there was a passion there. I'm going to help you get to college. Mm-hmm. And they got deals, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not the best guy because there's someone that's better than me.
So that's the whole purpose of evolution. So I'm just going to take this back full circle on the topic so we're talking about today. I had this vision while you were talking, this like little like scripture drawing type thing. Okay, if I was it a character artist who could like literally,
artist, yeah.
If I could literally draw that stuff, I would draw this picture right here. I'd have my guy over here, a little stick figure dude. He's ripping his hair out. He's pissed and he's mad and he's complaining about all the things that go against him. And he's not stacking very many things right here. And just you see like a little year calendar time frame. It's like 2020, guy's mad, still here. This is all he's built. You got a guy over here who's smiling, who's got like a little thought bubble of how can I make this situation better? How can I improve? How can I move past obstacles? How can I get around them? How can I build myself? How can I do all these different things? And he's got a smile on his face. And year after year, that stack just grows. Well, this guy's stack is still here and he's pulling his hair out. And he's that guy that's now 15 years down the road still saying the same dang thing. We all know those people. still saying the same things, and the world's out to get you, and this isn't my fault, and everything else. And it's the same situation as a player. It's that guy who's just not grown year after year after year after year, and he keeps saying the same old sorry message. And people get tired of hearing of it, and they just end up leaving him, but he'll find a new person to listen, because there's always people to listen. Oh, people will always gravitate towards that. Well, all of a sudden, 10 years down the road, this guy's stacked over here, this guy's still at the same spot, and it's 2035. That's all I'm thinking about, because you have conscious decisions every single day with it. In any of these examples we've given you today.
The difference between those two guys, one's filled with absolute 100% ego, and one guy is filled with minimal ego. Like, you have to have ego.
Oh, I'm sure, 100%.
But they're able to take the humility and say, all right, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm bad at. This is the problem. This is the solution. I'm not the person that can solve everything, right? And then this person over here that's ripping their heads out, they have anxiety, they have stress.
They're so scared of failure. They're
Yeah,
so scared.
100%.
They're so scared
100%.
of being able to say that it was your fault, that they're willing to put all of their blame on every other outside source. Whereas this person who's stacked your wins, who's literally overcome a million things, is willing to say, hey, I messed up there, but I changed. Hey, I messed up there, but I changed. Hey, I messed up. I failed at this. I did this. I'll tell you all the failures I've had. I'll tell you a million of them, and then I'll tell you how I've tried to work to overcome it and tried to learn and tried to, gravitate towards the next positive and tried to gravitate towards the next solution, because that's the only way. That's where I go back to the most simple factor. I hear a player start to complain about one of those external problems, and that's why they stopped. I am stopping it right there. We're not going to go there, dude.
I'm going to give a few practical things that I wrote down that can help. And this is stuff that I'm actually working on. Because again, I can get into complaint mode sometimes. But the things that I wrote down was how to actually win, how to actually get out of the stacked deck and realize that the deck is actually stacked for you, not against you. One is energy, being able to provide more energy, being able to get yourself out of bed earlier. If you wake up at 8 a.m., wake up at 7. If you wake up at 7, wake up at 6. Like, try to figure out a way to knock that time down to where you're waking up earlier and being able to get more energy off of you. Because if you are staying up late, watching TV, watching movies, that's an energy drain. You're not being with yourself. You're not being able to get energy for tomorrow. The next thing is persistence, being able to see that obstacle. And we talked about this in the last episode. Obstacles are the way. That's a Ryan Holiday book, but obstacles are the way, which is I want to go towards the obstacle and knowing that that's worth attacking. And I want to be persistent on that, because if I'm able to attack that obstacle and I'm able to succeed, guess how much, it's going back to your thing, stack deck or stacking your wins. Once I get one stack, I want to get the next one, and being able to overcome those different obstacles. Third is having a coherent and deliberate process. One thing that Dave is really, really good at that I struggle with is having a process. I'm really good with routines, but being able to have a process in my daily actions, being able to know, okay, I'm going to do this. This is going to trigger this, and I'm going to do this. I did it when I was an athlete. And being in the work life, it's been a little bit of a struggle just because I'm more on the creative side and I have to be able to think in different directions. So being a little bit more process oriented. Fourth thing is having an iteration and resilience. So knowing, it goes back to number 2, which is persistence, but being able to continually do that thing, continually pushing forward and being able to repeat that over. Fifth is being pragmatic. Sixth is having a strategic vision. 7 is craftiness, which is being creative. 8 is having an eye for opportunity and seeing pivotal moments. So when you guys go back, listen to those 8 different things, and you could probably, and I challenge you, journal it. That's what I've been doing recently is I journal everything that I'm thinking about. It's really helped me kind of take those complaints and put them on paper and It's being able to get those ideas across and then seeing like, hey, I'm being a wuss right here, or I'm being pretty active on it. This is something that I need to continually work on. But guys, that's what I wanted to end with on this episode. I think that's a good point to stop. I know that we are now 37 minutes into us ranting about a stacked deck, but just know like complaining is self-soothing and it's self-indulgent. And you're not going to be able to get away from it completely, but being able to recognize it, that's the first step. Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts. You can listen to it. You can watch it on Spotify and YouTube. But we will catch you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.